It's a TPK, it'll ruin your day. But hey, it's okay, it's a TPK. It's a TPK, the characters had their day, nothing left to play. Hey everybody, this is Carl with Tabletop Tango again. Welcome to the show. I'm doing something a little bit different than I've been doing. Most of the stuff we've been working on is Savage Worlds, going through the rules, talking about how to game master, have a good time doing it. Today I'm going to talk about I'm going to do a walkthrough of the Alien RPG, which is a pretty nice game, nice book, pretty well done. So again, it's not really a review, but I think it'd be kind of fun to go through it, talk about each section, what's in there. It's a big book, over 300 pages, so there's just a ton of content. The images are fantastic. The art is amazing. They could have taken the easy way out and just took some pictures from the movies and called it good, but no, it's all kind of original art. It's just fantastic. So let's take a look at the book and see what's all in there. All right, I'm going to be going through notes, and so hopefully you'll forgive me if I stop for a second to try to get to the right page. So let's start off with kind of the characters that are in this book, sort of what you can play. And so the careers that you find in the book are colonists, kind of that space trucker like we had in the first movie, colonial marines, and we got company reps. And so all of the archetype tropes that were in the movies are kind of available. And then each one of these characters, when you're doing character creation, has special pieces that go along with that. So then the next thing that they talk a little bit about is how to role play in the universe. But then there's multiple game modes that the book talks about. And so the book goes through how to do each one of these successfully in kind of the Game Master section. So there's two styles of play. There's cinematic and then there's campaign. Cinematic is obviously kind of the movie. Everybody might die at the end. There might only be a couple of survivors. Very intense. Campaign play is obviously where, hopefully things are a little less deadly unless you're going to go through characters. But, you can use the different frameworks like the Marines or colonists or space truckers to, do a session after session that we would traditionally think is a campaign. So the next thing that they talk about is sort of the key themes. What can the game be about? Horror, just straight science fiction, a wonder of discovery. There's dice. So now there's special dice that you can buy for the game that have symbols on them to represent the different effects. So there's two kinds of dice in the game. There's the base dice, which has a plus sign kind of symbol on the 6, and that defines the success of the roll of the base dice. And so the base dice is based on your skills plus your attributes, and that tells you how many dice. So it's a dice pool kind of game. The second type of dice is the stress dice. So as you see horrors, but you see things that freak you out, or you do a thing called pushing the roll where you try to re-roll to be successful, you gain stress. And then the stress dice have, on the 1, they have an alien symbol. On the 6, they have, again, a success symbol. And you'd roll those along with the other pool, and that drives whether you're successful and whether you get into a panic because of that die. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the section on it. So it talks a little bit about role-playing games, the different styles again, the core concepts of creating a character then. Let me jump. So is that right? Yep. Core concepts. So you talk about your career. You pick one of those archetypes. There's 4 attributes, strength, agility, wits, and empathy. You can see those on the screen, but muscle power, body control, your perception intelligence, and then your empathy, sort of that charisma, your ability to manipulate others. So once you have that, you get your starting attributes, and then there's a set of skills. And I'll talk a little bit about the skill section. Won't go through every skill, but they're really very well tied to the genre. You got things like heavy machinery, and you've got a bunch of other skills that are really aligned to that. Then there's talents, and so talents are things that are aligned with that archetype you picked, and they're kind of special. They're like a little edge or something that's special about the character. You get health, you have your stress level, and then suffering damage. There's this. I'll talk a little bit about that when we get there. And then again, the classic, appearance, name, what have you. But then also you get a personal agenda, or you pick a personal agenda, kind of like that backstory plan that you sort of want to be successful with. So here's an example of the art. They talk a lot about gear, encumbrance. Consumables may be important if you're playing that horror game where there's a limited resources, and those, add some tension to the game. Whether you have it all that you need to do. There's rules on how to handle consumables. That doesn't include, tracking, point by point of ammo or what have you. It's a little bit different. Talk about experience, spending XP, so the classic campaign kind of stuff. And then it gets into the section of each one of those types of characters, what's special about them, how to play them, sort of their talents. So it helps you kind of walk through the different aspects of it. So it gives you examples of maybe what would be your personal agenda. You obviously don't want to pick all those, sort of appearance. You pick a signature item that's, helps you de-stress later. You can leverage your signature item to help you kind of get over that fear. You get the gear that's kind of aligned with that. And then I missed this part, but here talks about the key attributes, talks about skills that you get based on this archetype, and then the talents. And I talked that talents are sort of special for each kind of these types of characters. And so banter, overkill, past the limit. We'll talk a little bit about it, but again, I'm not going to go through, this is kind of a walk through the book, kind of what's in the book. So I'm not going to go through every skill, every talent, but, and so then you have all the different types of characters you might find: medic, officer, pilot, etc. So let's go and jump ahead to, so get through all the scientists. There's lots of stuff here, sorry. And then here's the skill section. So there's 12 skills that are available. You can see that some of them sound like an attribute, but it's a skill. Like stamina is how you're able to, do kind of physical activities and push your limits. But so there's 12 skills that are available in the game. Each is tied to one of those attributes. So it's pretty standard, bog standard kind of skill-based system. Nothing fancy there. So when we talk about rolling the dice, I mentioned a little bit about how it is, but you add your skill level to your score in the attribute. So if I'm skill level 1 in heavy machinery and it's tied to strength, and I've got a strength of 2, I get that dice pool of 3. And then it talks about the stress dice. You pick those up as well based on where you are in your stress level. So pretty straightforward. I'm kind of working on a Roll20 script to be able to roll the dice and show the images. So it's kind of cool. It was kind of fun. So if you fail, something goes wrong, you didn't achieve your goal, typical stuff. But it's cool that this is driven by, let's be narrative, let's talk, what happened, why it happened. The whole concept of failing forward is important. Talks about probability, and then there's this concept of pushing roll. If you're desperate, it says, but if it comes back to you really want to succeed on a dice roll, this means that you grab all the dice that didn't have a success and then you roll them again. If you get more than one success, you get, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but you get a kind of special benefit that you can use against your opponent or for yourself. That's kind of an extra little added bonus. So you might want to get 2 successes. Usually you'd push it if you failed, though. That would be the big thing. But if you push it, then you're going to get some stress level. And you can only do it once. So this isn't like Savage Worlds. You can throw Benny after Benny. So it talks a little bit about stress level. If you see something horrific or you push your roll, you get a stress level. And then, as I mentioned, that gets into your die pool. So if you push it too much, then you're going to get to the situation where it talks about panic. And so when you're panicked, you would roll on a chart related to panic to find out what happens. And I don't know if that chart's here, but there's also the concept of modifications, based on what you're doing, based on the equipment you have. It may modify the roll. You may get more or less dice in your pool. So again, it's pretty straightforward. It's not complicated. It looks like it'd be a great system. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'm really looking forward to doing something. Probably I'll do a one-shot at a convention coming up if we ever have conventions again that aren't just online. And then you can have help from your friends. They can help add to your roll. So we've gone through skills. We talked about talents a little bit. And so it gets into the skill section and gets into the specifics of the skill. And so this is where I talked about, it's called stunts. This is where I talked about that if you get an extra die or an extra success, you can pick something to sort of add a little bonus, and so it goes through every one of the skills. Now, I mentioned that this is a big book, but one of the things you'll notice is the content density is not huge. There's just a ton of drawings, ton of artwork in it. Makes it really cool, but the information density, like you could have put a lot more than one skill kind of on a page in some of this, but that's what makes it cool. And so there's piloting, range combat, like we mentioned, like observation. That's your bog standard. And then there's ComTech, programming androids, mainframes, survival. So anyway, I won't go through every one of these, but there's tons of these guys. So then there's talents. And I mentioned talents are kind of aligned with the different character types each have, things that are special about their type. And so, then there's talents that are, not tied to anything. But so here's the Marines. I mentioned, so you got overkill, you don't rush or hide. Instead, you panic. Instead of panicking in the face of mortal danger, you can turn your fear into aggression and use it as a weapon against your enemies. So you can trigger the overkill effect whenever you make a panic roll. And so it's pretty cool. I mean, it's nice. It makes each character a little bit unique. And so there's talents for all the different types. And then there's general talents that you might have. Okay. So then we go into combat. So I talked a little bit about the dice rolls. And so this uses a range system that's not based on, grids or anything like that. It uses this concept of engage, short, medium, long, extreme that drives your ability to act. And so engage is right next to you, no kidding. Short, it might be a few meters away or in the same zone. And so it talks about zones. So a zone might be in the same compartment on a ship. So medium, adjacent zone. So that might be in the next compartment over. So that's kind of where they leverage the zone features. So they also have things about the features of the zone, whether it's cramped, dark, cluttered. There's a stealth mode, so we all know from the Alien movies that the aliens can be, moving around quiet. It adds to the tension. And so there's rules about how things would move stealthily in the environment, how they're detected. The concept of the motion tracker, that quintessential piece of equipment you need to be able to check on, things moving. Then it talks about initiative and actions. So initiative is done by a card-based system where you draw a card and it's got a 1 through a 10 on it. So it's not quite like using playing cards. It's, you take the cards, you get them. Obviously, you can use playing cards for this. You don't need their special cards for it. You draw for initiative. Number 1 acts first, 2 acts second, etc., etc. Once everybody goes through, the round is over. So pretty straightforward things. So then from an action economy standpoint, there's the concept of a slow and a fast action. So there's 2 actions, one which is, and here's a chart that shows sort of what can happen. So there's, doing first aid is a slow action. Fast actions are things like run, get up, draw a weapon. So you can do one fast action, or one slow action, one fast action in a round, or you can do 2 fast actions. And so that's kind of the action economy. You can help others. It talks about movement, what that does. And then sneak attacks, ambush. So, I'm just scrolling through everything, and I'm sorry that if you really wanted to read each section, but so it really has kind of a rich variety of the things that can affect, your ability to do things. It's pretty rich with describing all of those, maybe to a fault in the sense of, some games there's more. It's not quite as prescriptive, So this is pretty cool. Talks about close combat versus, how that is resolved, how you might block. Then it talks about grappling, shoving, so you can see retreat. So it really defines all of those different actions. There's a section on range combat that talks about how, you get modifications from that standpoint. Section on gear. It's not a big section, but it covers all the things that are pretty cool from the movies, so there's not a ton of equipment, but, it's all the really cool stuff, and the images and the graphics are very nice. And then, of course, there's the classic pulse rifle, cool stuff. There it is. Woo, nice. So let me look at what I've got here. So then it goes into the GM section, or it talks about sort of the world of Alien, how faster light travel, hypersleep, the things that, can affect you, the disorders that come along with that, things about gravity drive. It talks about charted space, talks about living in space. So everything that you need to kind of understand the universe of aliens and Alien. And so it's really pretty well done. I've read it through once, and it's even just to read and enjoy some of the details. It's pretty cool. It also has a section on how you, and they call the game master the game mother, how you would help run the game, sort of those hints and tips to say, how do you add tension? You can do things like limiting resources. You can keep the creatures in the shadows so that, people don't know what's going on. And then you increase the pressure. Then you let them breathe, take a break. So all that about how to, sort of help game master. And that's, I know folks who are been doing it for a while know these techniques. But if, somebody's attracted to this game because they love the movies and they think it'd be fun, it's good to have this information. And then it goes through the different sort of styles of play, kind of gives some hints on that. and then there's a section. So now you get a section on sort of the world, a little bit more of the world. So the governments, the corporations, describe how they work. If you've always wanted to understand, all these different worlds, the companies, we only see one in the movie, so they added some great additional information. They talk about, sort of those empires, militarization. So there's just a lot of stuff here. So I won't go through it all because obviously I don't want to give anything away too much to if you're playing this game versus if you're going to be a game master. It talks about the systems, the planets, the worlds that you can interact with as a player. There's a section on, I believe, building your own world. Talks about the different areas, core systems, and the frontier, and all the different sections. I thought there was a section on creating your own. I might be thinking of a different game. Well, anyway, maybe that's in campaign play. Yeah, there we go. Creating a star system. I knew you could. I knew it. And then there's a section on the different alien species. It goes through the classic xenomorphs that you'd find from the movies. I won't get into that, but they're all statted out. You can use them. I'm kind of more of I like to roll my own, so it'd be interesting if, it'd be interesting if there was some more kind of creature development rules and sort of things that help understand the speed, the signature attacks. So by the way, the xenomorphs don't have attributes or specific skills. That's important. So they don't have a stat block. They have some basic information, and then you know how fast they are, how fast they can go in stealth mode, combat, and then they have their signature attacks. That they can use, like if they're in engaged range, they can do multiple things. And then it talks about the different injuries. So, good stuff. Then there's a section on campaign play, like I mentioned, frameworks, job generator, the kinds of encounters, creating star systems, how to pull all that together as a game master to make things a little easier on you. So that's kind of then, at the end of the game, it talks about one of the space stations, all the information about it, different areas. So you've got sort of a set piece to start with, which is cool. And there's also, in the end here, there's also one big adventure, or it might be more of a series of adventures that you can use to get started and play with your players if you're the game master. So don't read this section, obviously, if you're a player. So it's cool. So it's got everything you need. I mean, it's got a good rule system. It's, I think, it's a good combination of, the pool. The stress die really adds to that kind of tension, it feels like. There's great information on the game for the game master to be able to add, to play that alien world, whether you're trying to play it from Aliens or from Alien, or whether you want to do something that's your own take on the genre of sort of space horror. There's other games that do it as well. I don't know if they do it better or not, but I thought this was a pretty cool book. I was excited to get it. Again, 300 odd pages. You can see, as I was scrolling through pretty quick, you can see though that there's a ton of art, all very well done. For the most part, it's pretty straightforward to play. It's got a lot of information to make it easier for the players to play. Only critique might be that, it's a little too descriptive. There's a lot of, little pieces that you have to, fiddly bits you have to understand in combat. But overall, it's pretty straightforward compared to maybe some of the other games out there. For a 300-page book, the system's not that difficult. So, pretty cool. I thought it'd be nice just to walk through this book, show people what it's all about, and since I wasn't doing something with my buddy Eric, I figured this would be another cool thing to do. So that is the Alien RPG. Sorry that I didn't go through every skill, every talent, or every combat modifier. The whole point was just walk through, get you a feel for it, and maybe you'll get excited to buy it. I got mine on sale from Drive-Thru RPG. I don't know if it's still on sale, but I got pretty excited I was able to do that. So anyway, this was Carl. I appreciate everybody listening in, and this is Tabletop Tango. It's a GPK, it'll ruin your day, but hey, it's okay, it's a GPK, it's a GPK, the characters had their day, nothing left to play, it's a GPK.